Stephen Curry dropped 56 points. The Magic were up 17 points in the first half over the Warriors. It was the first time it felt like the Warriors have really been tested ever since they got Jimmy Butler. And then Stephen Curry said, hell no. I'm taking this one. He hits a half-court buzzer beater at the end of the first half. The Warriors look like the vintage Warriors in the third quarter, just absolutely destroying the Magic in that period. Steph finishes with 56 points, 12 of 19 from three. On the 12-year anniversary, Tom, of the double bang in MSG when he had 54 points on 11 made threes 12 years ago. And on the 9-year anniversary of the double bang at Oklahoma City when he had 46 points on 12 made threes. Something about February 27th for Stephen Curry, Tom, for him to be doing this 12 years ago at MSG. That's crazy.
We can't normalize this, KOC. We can't normalize it. Like, what we're seeing here with Stephen Curry is unbelievable. And the fact that you got LeBron James doing it too, we can't normalize these guys at this age performing at this level like they're still in their primes. Like, Kev, this doesn't happen in NBA history. What we're seeing with him and KD. Like, I love the Court of Gold documentary on Netflix because you see how much this matters to KD. Basketball matters to KD. And the fact that we have three real champions of not just their league, but of basketball doing this at a high level, this is the best it's ever going to be. We're never going to see anything like this. Steph Curry, LeBron on this night, he had another 30-point game with a gazillion rebounds and looked like he was in his prime. And Kevin Durant, for his part, had another great game where he's like, oh yeah, he had 20 plus points at this age. We can't normalize what we're seeing here, Kev.
No, we can't. And I mean, I think for us, I mean, you and I, we're both in our 30s, right? You know, we grew up with basketball mostly in the 2000s. I mean, you might remember MJ a bit more than I do in the 90s, but it's like, I just can't imagine we're ever going to have it where we have these elite level all-time players, like top 10, top 20 level players, top 5 in the case of LeBron, maybe in the case of Steph, top 10-ish in the case of Kevin Durant, where we have all three at this one time playing still at this level into their late 30s or 40s in the case of LeBron. Like I don't know, it just blows my mind, the fact this is actually happening. This didn't happen with those guys I grew up with in the 2000s.
No, it didn't. And I can prove it to you, Kev. I looked this up because Steph is turning 37 years old in 2 weeks. 37, okay? LeBron James is 40. And KD is up there too. He's not quite 40, not the same age. But these guys at 35 or older have had 27 40-point games in their career combined. Kevin Durant, Stephen Curry, LeBron James, 27 40-point games. According to stathead.com, that's more than the entire Dream Team combined. You take the Dream Team, that era, think about all the amazing players on that team. You take their 40-plus games at the age of 35 or older, and it doesn't amount to those three players alone, Steph, LeBron, and KD. Those guys alone, they have 17, the Dream Team. So we're talking MJ, Larry, Magic, Karl Malone, David Robinson. Leitner. Throw in Leitner in there, of course. Clyde the Glide. All these guys, if you bottled up all of their best scoring nights from when they're 35 or older, it still doesn't amount to what these three guys right now are doing, and they're going to do it again and again. Stephen Curry with 56, okay? Now, let me just blow your mind a little bit more on that stat. So the Dream Team combined have 17. Steph, LeBron, and KD have 27, which means you could throw in Kareem on the Dream Team. You could throw in Wilt on the Dream Team. You could throw in Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal, and they still would not have as many 40-plus point games at 35 or older than LeBron, KD, and Steph. That's insane.
That's insane.
Like, those are
truly
the best
insane
scorers of all time, and they can't even hold a candle to what we're seeing with these guys right now. So this trio, Kev, you say it all the time. Don't take LeBron James for granted. Don't take Steph Curry for granted. We cannot take this for granted, what we're seeing with these guys right now.
And the Warriors didn't. That's ultimately why they traded for why they traded for Jimmy Butler, to support Stephen Curry, with him still being this magnificent player into his late 30s. The discussion earlier this year was, well, are they just going to sit on their hands and do nothing? Well, they did something. And then with Jimmy Butler, he actually had his worst game so far with the Warriors. He had 5 points on 7 shots. He was not effective in that game. And yet Steph still is able to explode. And Jimmy did create some of those shots for Steph, but a lot of those were self-created shots for Stephen Curry in a night where Pods is 3 for 12, Moody's 1 for 5, and all but one person, Quentin Post on the bench, really did anything. And like Steph just led them to victory. It was an example. I have some Warriors fans in my life. The light years ahead guys are very bullish on the Warriors right now. Sam and Andy, like believing this team has a shot, that OKC can be beaten, that the West is open. I think this game was a good case for that because, like, look, I've talked about this in my pod earlier this week. The Warriors have not had a great schedule so far. They haven't faced tough teams yet. They haven't really been tested. The Magic have been horrible ever since January 1st. They have not been a good team at all. They're the 7th seed in the East. They're not to be taken seriously. They're one of the worst shooting teams of all time, which we'll talk about more in a second. They're not to be taken super seriously. But the fact that the Warriors themselves also had a bad night against this good Magic defense, the defense is good still. And Steph just said, okay, I'm going to have one of my vintage throwback nights like I did 12 years ago and 9 years ago, and I'm still going to guide the team to victory. It's not going to have to be like this with Steph every night because he has a better supporting cast that can help them on those other nights. So I think nights like this one show that Steph isn't really on the decline like it felt like he was when he was dealing with that knee injury prior to the trade deadline, where it felt like he was maybe even quiet quitting a bit. He did not look like his full prime self, but ever since the Butler trade, I mean, the dude has been one of the 5 best players in the league still.
This is why I love basketball, man, is that like these players are not independent of each other. You bring in Jimmy Butler into this equation, it lights a fire underneath Stephen Curry and Draymond Green and the rest of the team. You can't just say like, hey, 1 + 1 = 2. Sometimes 1 + 1 = 5. Right? When it comes to basketball, the way that a guy like Jimmy Butler, both his on-court and off-court influence can amplify everyone on a team, at least for a little while. We know that Jimmy Butler can do the opposite effect for a team on his way out. But until that happens, Jimmy Butler is an amplifier in all respects. And it's important to note that only 28 of the 56 points that Steph Curry scored against the Magic came with Jimmy Butler on the floor. So the half of them came with Jimmy Butler, half of them came with not Jimmy Butler, which indicates that Steph Curry was just going off on everybody, everyone that they threw at him. And KCP, unfortunately, KCP had 0 points. Steph Curry, 56. That's got to be one of the widest gaps of matchups in NBA history that KCP, and bless his heart, man, he tried. But when Steph's got it going like that, I did a study a couple years ago, Kev, that looked at the deeper that Steph goes into that 3-point attempt column, the more that he shoots, the higher percentage he makes those shots. So I've always advocated that Stephen Curry should take 23s a game. 23s a game. And part of that is because of the math, but also the more that he takes these shots, the hotter he gets. And I think a little bit of this is just the hot hand effect, that he's going to more likely take a lot of threes when he's getting hot earlier in the game. A little bit of selection bias maybe there. But Kev, I want Stephen Curry to do this every night. It's grinding, it's exhausting, but it reminds us that this is the greatest shooter of all time. And I continue to believe that almost is a backhanded compliment. By saying he's the greatest shooter of all time, that's, I think, undermining all of his game. The fact that he's got the handles, the fact that he runs off the ball nonstop. I think by just calling him the greatest shooter is undermining all the other great things that he does on the floor. So he is an all-time great player. And yes, he's the all-time greatest shooter. But this dude, 56, he's got 3 50-point games at the age of 35 or older. Michael Jordan, Alex English, Kobe Bryant, and the last one is Jamal Crawford, believe it or not, are the only ones before Stephen Curry to do that at least once. So he's got 3. Those guys have 4, and LeBron James has 2, which means that Steph Curry and LeBron James have more 50-point games after the age of 35 than NBA history combined. Like, this is absurd. the fact that Steph is still able to do this. And I think a lot of it has to do with what you said. Jimmy Butler's on this team, and it raises their ceiling and their floor. Without Steph Curry on the floor, they're much better because of Jimmy Butler. And I think this team is a title contender, legit title contender.